Snow fell thick over Chicago that night, burying the streets in a restless hush. Traffic lights blinked through the white haze like wounded eyes. Somewhere between the frozen river and the train yard, a small figure stumbled through the storm, a girl no taller than the snowdrifts around her. Her name was Emma, 7 years old, wearing a thin pink dress and clutching a torn teddy bear to her chest. Each step left a faint mark before the wind erased it. Behind her came the muffled echo of boots and a man's angry voice shouting her name, one of the guards from Riverside Children's Home. Emma's breath broke into tiny clouds. She slipped, fell to her knees, the bear sliding from her arms onto the icy pavement. When she looked up, headlights flared across the snow and stopped. Before we begin this story, take a moment to breathe. Wherever you're watching from tonight, tell me your city below, and let's share one quiet heartbeat for every child who once stood alone in the cold. A man stepped out. Tall, wrapped in a charcoal coat, his eyes shadowed by exhaustion more than age. The world called him David Mitchell, tech magnate, billionaire, widower. But in that instant, he was just another soul staring at a child lost in winter. Emma crawled toward him, trembling. Her lips were blue when she whispered, "Please, pretend to be my dad just for a moment." For a heartbeat, David couldn't move. He'd spent 2 winters grieving a wife he couldn't save, shutting every door of his heart. Yet the sound of that plea cut through the snow louder than any siren. The guard caught up, shouting, "Sir, that girl belongs to us." She ran from the shelter. David looked down at the trembling child, then at the uniformed man, and something inside him shifted. He slipped off his coat, draped it over Emma's shoulders, and said quietly, "No one talks to her like that again." The guard hesitated, recognizing the face from a magazine cover, the weight of money and power standing in the snow. He backed away without another word. Emma clung to the coat, its warmth swallowing her shivers. David knelt to pick up the fallen teddy bear and pressed it into her hands. Up close he saw the raw red of her knuckles, the fear behind her tears. "You're safe now," he murmured. In the silence that followed, the city seemed to pause, snow swirling around them, like a veil street lamps glowing pale gold against the dark. Neither of them knew it yet, but that single lie, "Pretend to be my dad," would change both their lives forever. Steam rose from the cafe windows, fogging the glass, while snow kept falling outside. Inside, under the glow of yellow light, Emma sat wrapped in the oversized grey coat that nearly swallowed her. She held her teddy bear close, the fur damp, one ear missing. David watched from across the table, both hands wrapped around a mug he hadn't touched. For a man used to numbers and silence, he didn't know what to say to a child who'd just changed his life. Emma broke the quiet first. Her voice was small but steady. "They were going to send me away." David leaned closer. "Away from where?" "From my brother." She blinked fast, chasing tears she didn't want him to see. "Tommy's 5. We live in different rooms now. They said he cries too much. They said I make trouble when I sneak to him at night." The words came like tiny shards of glass. David's throat tightened. He saw flashes of another winter, the hospital room, his wife, Sarah's pale face, her whisper. "Promise me you'll keep loving something even when it hurts." "Where is Tommy now?" he asked. "At Riverside. Behind the red door. They don't let me see him." She stared down at her mittens, damp from melted snow. "If they take me to another place, he'll think I left him. He can't sleep without me." David felt the line hit somewhere deep he thought long frozen. A child terrified of losing the only soul who still remembered her name. He exhaled slowly. We'll find a way to see him. Both of you deserve better than this. She looked up. You promise I do. The clock above the counter ticked softly. Outside, the snow eased into gentle flurries, the kind that made the city look forgiven. For the first time in 2 years, David noticed how warm light could still touch cold glass. When he paid the bill, the waitress, recognizing his face from the news, hesitated, then smiled. You're David Mitchell, right? I thought you didn't go out anymore. He only said some things are worth stepping back into the world for. As they walked into the night, Emma slipped her small hand into his. The coat trailed behind her like a cape. Each step left twin prints in the snow, one large, one small, side by side. They had no plan, no papers, no idea what waited beyond that frozen street. Only a promise still warm between them against the endless winter ahead. Morning came pale and cold. Chicago lay under a thick quilt of snow that muted every sound except the crunch of boots on ice. David's black sedan glided through the frozen streets toward the Riverside Children's Home. Inside, Emma sat in the back seat, small hands folded around her teddy bear. Are we really going back there? She asked softly. Only to make things right, David said. You and Tommy deserve to be together. The gates of Riverside loomed like a wall of grey iron. Frost clung to the bars, and the sign above had lost half its paint. A woman in a navy coat waited on the steps, Director Walsh, with 2 uniformed employees beside her. Her smile was practiced, polite and cold. Mr. Mitchell, she greeted, voice echoing off the snow. You can't simply walk in. The girl was under our supervision until she ran away. David opened the car door and helped Emma down. She's not property. She's a child. A child the state placed in my care, Walsh snapped. You interfered with a legal process. Her tone carried the same sharpness that made Emma flinch. The girl pressed closer to David's coat, eyes lowered. If you intend to take her, Walsh continued, you'll face criminal charges. David met her gaze, calm but unyielding. Then file them. But hear me first. He stepped forward, his voice steady enough to cut through the icy air. I saw what this storm did to her. No 7-year-old should have frostbite on her fingers and fear in her eyes. You call that care. From this moment, Emma Mitchell is my daughter. Until you can prove she's better off freezing on your doorstep, don't come near her again. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Walsh's smile faltered. She knew the name Mitchell, its power, its lawyers, its reach. You can't watch me. He handed her his business card, the bold letters, Mitchell Technologies Foundation, gleaming under the pale sun. Any questions about her welfare can go through my attorney. Walsh's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. The guards stepped aside. Emma clutched his hand, whispering, You really said, I'm your daughter? He looked down, snowflakes melting in his hair. I did. And until you tell me otherwise, it's true. For a moment, the wind died. The only sound was the crunch of their steps, leaving the orphanage behind. In the rear-view mirror, the iron gates closed again. But this time, the world outside felt wider, brighter. By afternoon, the sky had turned to steel. Snow kept falling heavier now, swirling against the windows of David's penthouse on the 34th floor. The city looked beautiful from up here, but beauty, he thought, often hid cruelty well. Emma sat curled on the couch, sketching on a napkin with a dull pencil. She drew 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, standing under falling snow. When she noticed David watching, she smiled shyly. "It's us," she said. "We're not cold anymore." He was about to answer when his phone rang. Robert Chen, his longtime lawyer, didn't waste time on greetings. "David, what the hell did you do?" "I've got 3 voicemails from the Department of Child Services. The Riverside director is accusing you of kidnapping." David turned away from Emma's curious glance and lowered his voice. "She was freezing in the street, Robert. I brought her home. That's not how the law sees it. Walsh has filed a report. They'll send an investigator by morning." He felt the weight of the words settle over him like fresh snow. "Then we'll show them what she's been through." "Be careful," Robert warned. "They protect their own system. And David, don't let them twist your grief into motive. You're still healing from Sarah's death. They'll use that." The call ended. Silence reclaimed the room. Outside, the city lights blinked through the snow like faraway lighthouses. Later that evening, David stepped onto the balcony, phone in hand, scrolling through old photographs. Sarah's smile appeared on the screen's summer sunlight, a picnic blanket, her eyes full of life. He whispered, "You'd have done the same thing." Inside, the TV flickered. A news anchor's voice broke the quiet. "Tech billionaire David Mitchell under investigation after allegedly harboring a runaway child from Riverside Children's Home." Emma's pencil dropped. "They're talking about you." "About us," he corrected gently. "Don't worry, truth has a way of surviving." But when he turned off the TV, his reflection in the dark glass looked less certain. Across town, Director Walsh poured herself a drink in her office. The lamp cast a yellow cone over a stack of files. Her assistant, a narrow-faced woman named Karen, stood nearby. "Do you think he'll fight it?" Karen asked. Walsh smirked. "Of course he will. Men like Mitchell always think money can buy innocence. But this time we'll use his fame to bury him. Call Ortega, the lawyer who handles our transfers. I want those adoption records sealed and the girl's file marked unstable behavior." Karen hesitated. "And the boy, keep him where he is. If she wants her brother, she'll crawl back to us." The sound of ice clinking in her glass echoed through the office like a slow, deliberate countdown. That night, while Chicago slept under a blanket of snow, 2 very different wars began, one in the heart of a grieving man and one behind the doors of a system built to break children like Emma. The next morning, snow still blanketed the city, but the sky had cleared to a pale blue. David sat in his office, the blinds half-drawn light cutting across stacks of paperwork. He had spent the night replaying Emma's words in his head. "They said I make trouble when I sneak to him at night. No child should be punished for love," he thought. At 9 sharp, the elevator chimed. Janet Rivers, a private investigator and former journalist, stepped out, her boots dripping melted snow onto the marble floor. She was in her mid-40s, sharp-eyed, and known for chasing truths people wanted buried. "I heard you've picked a fight with a government institution," she said, setting down her case folder. "Those don't end quietly." "Neither does injustice," David replied. "I need everything you can find on Riverside Children's Home, especially the director Helen Walsh." Janet opened the folder. "Already started. The place receives state funding, but records are missing expenses marked as transfer support. Multiple kids listed as relocated with no receiving facility recorded. And one of the names matches your girl's brother, Tommy Blake." David leaned forward. "You found him?" Not exactly. His file stops 2 weeks ago. After that, the page is blank. Someone wiped it. The room fell silent except for the hum of the heater. Janet slid a photograph across the table, an image taken from an anonymous tip. A white cargo van parked behind Riverside at 2:13 a.m. Its license plate barely visible through the snow. These vans show up twice a month, she said. Kids disappear, paperwork vanishes. I've seen this pattern before. David felt his stomach twist. You're saying they're selling children? Janet didn't answer. Her silence said enough. That night, David returned home to find Emma sitting by the fireplace, tracing shapes on the fogged window with her finger. When she noticed him, she asked, "Did you find Tommy?" He crouched beside her. "Not yet. But I found someone who'll help us." Her voice quivered. "Mrs. Walsh said people don't look for kids like us." "Then she's never met me," he said. The flames flickered in her eyes, tiny reflections of hope fighting the dark. David pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of Sarah, his late wife. She used to say, "The world breaks people in half, so they can hold someone smaller together." Emma tilted her head. "Did she fix you?" He smiled faintly. She tried. "Maybe you'll finish what she started." Across the city, Janet parked her car a block from Riverside. She carried a small camera under her coat, breath clouding in the freezing air. Through the chain-link fence, she saw dim lights inside the old administrative wing. A man in a grey suit. Luis Ortega, a lawyer tied to Walsh, loaded boxes into a van. When he turned toward the light, Janet's camera clicked. Inside one of the boxes, a tag fluttered loose in the wind, file number 142, T. Blake. At midnight, David's phone buzzed with a message from Janet. A photo, a license plate, a timestamp. Underneath her text read, "You were right. They're moving kids tonight." David stared at the screen, his pulse quickening. Outside his window, the snow began to fall again, soft, relentless, hiding footprints, but never the truth. He whispered to the empty room, "Hold on, Tommy, we're coming." By dawn, the city was awake with whispers. Headlines flashed across every screen, "Millionaire under investigation for harboring runaway child." Photographs of David carrying Emma from the snow now looped endlessly on morning news shows. Commentators debated whether he was a savior or a criminal. At the breakfast table, Emma stared at the TV, her spoon motionless in the cereal bowl. "They're saying bad things about you," she murmured. "That's how people protect lies," David replied gently. "They make the truth sound dangerous." He switched off the screen, but the noise outside didn't stop. Camera crews were already gathering downstairs, lights flashing against the snow. Robert Chen called again, voice tight. "They've frozen part of your foundation's account. The state wants custody of the girl returned immediately." "They'll have to go through me first," David said. "I'm serious, David. They could charge you with abduction. The adoption system doesn't forgive defiance. And now Walsh's lawyer is feeding the tabloids." David rubbed his temples. "Ortega, exactly. He's framing you as emotionally unstable, still grieving, acting out of guilt. They're building a narrative." He ended the call before anger could turn into words Emma would hear. Through the window, snow whipped sideways, painting the skyline in restless white. By noon, a knock sounded on the penthouse door. David opened it to find two investigators, a man and a woman, badges clipped to their coats. "Mr. Mitchell," the woman began, "we're from Child Protective Services. We need to verify the welfare of the child in your care." Emma stood halfway down the hall, clutching her teddy bear. David's instinct was to shield her. "She's safe here," he said. The male officer scanned the apartment unimpressed. "Safe isn't the same as legal." "Legal didn't keep her warm," David shot back. The woman's expression softened, but only slightly. "We'll file our report. You'll receive a court summons within 72 hours. When they left, Emma whispered, "Are they gonna take me?" "No one's taking you," David promised, though his heart didn't believe it yet. That evening, Janet met him in an underground parking lot. Her face was pale from the cold, her hands trembling around a folder. "They know I've been digging," she said. "Someone followed me after I left Riverside." David took the folder. Inside were photos, vans, transfer records, payment receipts linked to shell charities. "This is enough to go federal," he said. "Then do it soon," she warned. "Because Walsh isn't trying to protect her job anymore, she's protecting a network." Later, when the city lights flickered on, David stood at the window beside Emma. Down below, reporters huddled in the snow waiting for a statement. He turned to her and said quietly, "If they call this a crime, I'll still choose it again." She leaned against him, whispering, "They can't take love away, right?" He smiled faintly. "No, sweetheart, they never could." Outside, snow kept falling silent, relentless, defiant, like the truth refusing to disappear. Snow drifted down over the Cook County Courthouse, softening its hard edges. Inside, the hallways were crowded reporters, lawyers, cameras, flashing like lightning in the white glare. At the center of it all stood David Mitchell, wearing a dark suit and calm he didn't truly feel. Beside him, Emma clutched her teddy bear, her small hand swallowed in his. "Do I have to talk?" she whispered. "Only if you're ready," he said. "Truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be heard." The courtroom doors swung open. The sound of murmurs and papers filled the air. Judge Eleanor Miles, grey-haired and measured, presided from the bench. At the prosecutor's table sat Helen Walsh, lips pressed tight, and her attorney, Luis Ortega, the same man Janet had caught moving files in the night. When the gavel struck, silence fell like fresh snow. Prosecution first. Ortega rose, his smile thin. "Your Honor, this case is simple. My client, Director Walsh, seeks only to uphold the law." Mr. Mitchell, though well-intentioned, unlawfully harbored a minor and interfered with the state's custody. His emotional instability following the death of his wife calls into question his fitness as al-Yamadan. He turned to the jury, voice slick as oil. "We sympathize with grief, but grief cannot rewrite law." David sat motionless, the insult sliding off him. He had heard worse words in hospital corridors. Then it was Robert Chen's turn. The lawyer stood holding a folder thick with evidence. "Your Honor, the law exists to protect children, not those who exploit them. Riverside Children's Home received hundreds of thousands in state funds. My team found missing invoices, false reports, and most disturbingly, van logs signed by Mr. Ortega himself." A ripple spread through the courtroom. Robert continued, his voice gaining force. "This isn't about one man's grief. It's about a system that buried children under paperwork. Mr. Mitchell didn't kidnap anyone. He rescued her." He nodded toward the witness stand. "And the truth can speak for itself." Emma hesitated when the bailiff guided her to the stand. The room felt enormous. David gave her a small nod. She took a breath. "They said I was trouble," she began softly, "because I sneaked into my brother's room at night. They said I didn't listen, but Tommy cries when he's alone. I just wanted him to know I was there. Her eyes lifted toward the judge. Mrs. Walsh said kids like us don't get families, that nobody wants broken things. But Mr. David said we weren't broken. He said we were just waiting for light. Someone in the gallery sniffled. Even the court reporter paused for a heartbeat. Emma turned toward Walsh, voice trembling but clear. I forgive you. Not because you're sorry, but because hating you makes me small. I want to be big. The room fell utterly silent. Judge Miles removed her glasses, eyes glistening. Thank you, Emma, she said quietly. Robert handed up Janet's photographs. Next images of the cargo vans, financial transfers, falsified adoption records. The judge's expression hardened. This court finds Director Helen Walsh guilty of fraud obstruction and child endangerment. Her facility is hereby suspended pending full investigation. Then turning to David Mr. Mitchell, this court also recognizes your guardianship of Emma and Tommy Blake as lawful and final. The gavel struck, once sharp, resonant, final. David exhaled, the sound breaking the tension like ice cracking on a river. Emma leapt from her seat, throwing her arms around his waist. We did it, Dad, she whispered. No, he said, his eyes shining. You did. Outside, cameras flashed, but he didn't look at them. He only saw the child who'd once begged him to pretend, now holding his hand as though she'd always belonged there. 1 month later, winter still wrapped Chicago in white, but inside the Mitchell residence, warmth hummed like a quiet song. The fire cracked softly, casting golden light across the living room. Garlands and twinkling lights climbed the staircase, and the faint scent of cinnamon drifted through the air. On the floor sat Emma and Tommy, side by side, piecing together a jigsaw puzzle. Tommy's laugh, small, breathy, real, echoed through the room every time a piece fit. It was a sound David hadn't realized he'd been starving for. From the kitchen doorway, he watched them, a mug of cocoa in his hand. Sarah's photograph hung above the mantel, the same warm smile that once held his world together. For the first time since she died, he spoke to her picture without pain. You'd like them, he said softly. They make the house feel like you again. Emma looked up. Who's she? My wife, David answered. Her name was Sarah. She loved Christmas lights more than anything. Emma tilted her head, thoughtful. Then we'll make it bright for her. She stood and ran to the corner where boxes of decorations waited. Tommy followed, dragging tinsel like a comet tail. Soon the room glowed gold and silver, tiny reflections dancing across the walls. Snow fell outside the tall windows, but inside laughter replaced the storm. David crouched to help Tommy hang a star on the small pine tree near the fire. The boy whispered, I didn't think Santa would find us this year. He always finds kids who believe David said fastening the star in place. And you too. You gave me something better than belief. You gave me purpose. Later that night, after the children had fallen asleep, David stood by the window. The city lights shimmered below, blurred by the snow. He whispered into the quiet, Thank you, Sarah, for sending them to me. He turned off the last lamp. The glow from the tree bathed the room in gentle light. Emma stirred in her sleep, murmuring, Good night, Dad. David smiled. Good night, sweetheart. Outside, the snow eased, falling softer now, as if the world itself was exhaling. And for the first time in years, the house didn't echo with silence. It breathed. A year later, Chicago was dressed in snow again, but this winter felt different. The wind still howled across the lake, but inside the Mitchell Foundation, laughter filled the halls. David's once quiet company had transformed into a home for voices that had none. Children ran between offices where coders used to work, drawing snowmen on glass walls. On the entrance plaque, new words gleamed beneath the old logo, Sarah and Emma Light Fund, for every child left in the cold. David walked through the corridor, his hands in his coat pockets, nodding to volunteers and social workers. Emma and Tommy trailed beside him, proudly wearing their school scarves. "How many kids are we helping now?" Emma asked. "A few hundred," David said. "But that's just the start." She smiled, holding his hand tighter. Outside, reporters waited cameras, ready for the Foundation's 1-year anniversary. David knelt beside her before stepping into the lights. "Remember what we said last Christmas? That family isn't born," she said. "It's found." "That's right," he said. "And when you find it, you protect it." Later, standing before the crowd, David spoke simply. "We can't change every law overnight. But we can change one life at a time, with kindness, with courage, with warmth that outlasts any winter." Applause rose through the hall like a tide of light. That night, the house on Michigan Avenue glowed like a lantern in the storm. Emma drew another picture for her wall, 3 figures under a single umbrella, snow falling in soft white rings. She wrote 4 small words underneath: "The day love won." David tucked the blanket around her shoulders, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Sleep, sweetheart. No more dark." She smiled in her dreams, the same smile that once melted a stranger's frozen heart. Outside, snow drifted past the window. Not heavy this time, just peaceful, endless, forgiving. And somewhere beyond that quiet bridge, where everything began, 2 footprints, one large, one small, still waited beneath the snowproof that even in the coldest city, love had found its way home. In moments of hurt like Emma's, or in the quiet strength to rise again like David's. Have you ever witnessed an injustice finally exposed? Or a kind hand reaching out at just the right time? If an Emma ever stood near you, frightened unseen, waiting for warmth, what would you do today to ease her fear? Tell us your thoughts below, because even a single line from you could become the light that guides someone who feels lost tonight. And while we're here, I want to check in with you. How have you been lately? Did this story bring a lump to your throat at any point? If your day feels heavy, I hope this ending left a trace of warmth behind, a reminder that compassion still matters, that hope still answers when called. Our channel will always be here to listen. Please share this video so more hearts can hear stories that heal. Every comment, every view, every word from you is the spark that keeps this light alive, so we can keep telling stories that remind us. No matter how dark the road may seem, the light is always waiting.